All right. Again, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July Mental Health is Essential program. This program is a collaboration between the Evanston Public Library and the Mayor's Mental Health Task Force. We meet the second Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. You're welcome to join us for the remainder of the year on Tuesdays. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how to understand and access local mental health resources. So we're going to have three panelists, and I'll let them introduce themselves once the program starts. But I want to introduce you all to our most recent addition to mental health resources in Evanston, and that is the library employs a full-time social worker. And Tabitha Ledbetter is here with us this evening. Tabitha, do you want to do just a brief introduction of yourself and where people can find you?
Sure thing. I'm really excited to be here. I've been at Evanston for just a few days now. I don't know if it connects very well. Can you not hear me?
Yeah, maybe just speak up nice and loud.
I'm new to Amita Health since the 28th of June. I've only been at the Evanston Library a couple of days now. So I'm getting my feet wet, as we say here, but I will mostly be on the third floor of the library, and that's where most people can find me Monday through Friday.
All right, great, thank you. And with that, we'll launch right into the program. We have three panelists with us tonight, and Dara, I'll let you start us off.
All righty. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see your faces. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started with my presentation. 1 second here. Okay, can everyone see that okay? Great. All righty. Well, good evening again. My name is Dara Winley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and the director of the Betty D. Harris Child and Family Clinic at the Family Institute at Northwestern University. And I'm going to be focusing on mental health resources in Evanston, just sharing just a couple of sliding scale fees and free clinics that are out there in our community. Well, before I knew the chat was disabled, I was going to pose a question and have you all give some input. But I will just pose the question and you can hypothesize with me. But what is mental health, right? We hear this word all the time, or these words all the time. And I think there's a lot of different things that can come to mind. But how you define mental health is focusing on your emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Mental health is focusing on how you think and how you feel, and then ultimately how you act. So you can think about how you handle stress throughout the day, how you relate to others, which then impacts how you make choices. So yeah, that's sort of just a broad thought around what is mental health. And also want to emphasize that mental health is important at every stage of life. Thinking about our kiddies and our teens, and when you go into young adulthood and then continuing on, every stage of life has a different component of mental health that matters. So I want you all just to keep that in mind as we talk about that. So just some common myths of mental health resources or seeking mental health resources I want to throw out there, because I know that going to therapy and seeking mental health resources is a trend right now. It's very popular to do that, but it hasn't always been. And there are a lot of reasons why. So some of the myths that I have heard my clients share with me before include, you must be sick or crazy in order to seek therapy, right? There has to be something wrong with you. I've also heard that talking to a therapist is for weak people, right? There's something associated with you around weakness, and that's why you have to talk to someone. Talking to someone really won't help you, right? It's just kind of in our minds, and maybe we think that there's this thing happening, but it's really not providing any support, which is not true. You have to seek therapy only if you have past trauma, right? So something has had to have gone wrong with your parents or in your family background in order for you to come to therapy. At therapy, you will be prescribed medicine, right? That's a big one, where a lot of people in my community and other communities have struggled with, seeking mental health resources. And then you'll feel better after every session. Now, while that's the hope, that's not always the case, because therapy is often bringing up a lot of old things, and you're dealing with things that are really difficult to talk about. So every session does not feel good, even though it may be good for you. And then you have to stay with your therapist, right? So when you connect to someone, a mental health professional, then that's it, right? You're stuck in that box, and you just kind of have to figure out the personality and, figure it all out. And that's not true. At any point in time, you're welcome to leave. You're welcome to find another person that you feel like is a good fit for you. I hear a lot of my teens sharing that they feel stuck, in their school settings with their match with a counselor, or their parent has found them a counselor that they feel that this is it. And then they have this really negative view of therapy moving forward. And then the last myth is that therapy is forever. And that does not have to be true. It can be true. Some people utilize therapy for maintenance, just kind of having in their back of their pocket to talk to someone. But it's good to note when you feel that symptoms are being reduced, that may be a good sign that you are improving and that you are ready to conquer the world without necessarily having a therapist in your back pocket. So why is mental health important? Mental health is important because 1 in 5 Americans experience a mental health illness each year. I didn't add that, but they experience some sort of illness, whether that's anxiety or experiences with depression, that is a very common encounter. And then 1 in 5 children, either currently or at some point in their lives, will have a serious mental illness as well, according to the Center for Disease Control. And then another reason why this is important is when you do not attend to your mental health, it affects the way that you see yourself and also how you see others, and then ultimately it impacts your daily functioning, your day-to-day operations. And then lastly, poor mental health care can then affect your physical health, right? So sometimes I have clients complain to me about stomach aches and, not feeling, getting constant headaches and things like that, that ultimately is that they haven't taken time to really look within, or sit down or just pause, and take a break. And that ends up impacting their physical health. Of course, there's other things as well, that are maybe a little more traumatic that also can lead to negative physical health symptoms. But ultimately, if we're thinking about mental health as something that's going on in your mind and something that's affecting you, it's ultimately going to show out in your body. Okay. So what happens when you go to therapy? I get this question a lot when seeking mental health resources. Like I said, it's a very trendy move right now, and everyone's like, go to therapy, but not everyone knows what therapy entails. So the first things first is, after you get informed consent with your therapist, making sure that they let you know that everything is confidential and that they're mandated reporters, your first task is really building rapport with your therapist. You get to ask questions just like they're going to ask questions to you about your life and why you are here. And it's just as much of an assessment of them as it is of you. And then ultimately you get to create a treatment plan to learn how to maintain or how to reduce the stressors that you're currently experiencing. And in this process, you may experience some discomfort. Like I mentioned, it's not always butterflies and just fluffy feelings, throughout therapy. Like I said, you're unpacking things and you're exposing things, and that may be really uncomfortable, and especially doing that with a stranger for the first time. If that is your first time, can be very uncomfortable and awkward, and that's okay, right? I think it's about knowing that you're experiencing that and that won't always last in that relationship with your therapist. You should expect to feel heard in your space. If that is not a priority and you're experiencing that as a priority, then it may be a sign that, there's something going on in the dynamic and that you may need to figure out another space where you can be prioritized and feeling heard. That is a space for you to share your needs. And then especially with someone who's trained, who can listen to you, who's trained to listen to you, and they can help you figure out those next best steps and problem solving with whatever concerns that are currently going on. So I want to share a few mental health resources that are currently in Evanston. So if you are considering going to therapy or seeking mental health resources, I want to just share what's out there. So first, I'm going to start with the clinic that I work at. Like I said, I'm the director of the Betty D. Harris Child and Family Clinic, and we're located in Evanston, Millennium Park, Northbrook, and Westchester. At this point, we are offering individual, couple, and family therapy with children, and we're also providing therapy for parent consultations, co-therapy, and also parents who are going through divorce and other marital issues. Our therapists in training in the clinic. So we have master level clinicians. And right now, we will, by the fall, we'll have over 120 trainees that both include Spanish speaking and Mandarin speaking therapists. And another great part about this clinic is that we are free. We are currently free. We do operate on a sliding scale, but until December 21st or 31st, we will be free before we go back to our sliding scale, which will be based on your household income. And then lastly, we're currently working remotely right now still. So it's only telehealth, but we do resume in person September 7th. So another mental health resource in Evanston is called ETHS, Rogers Park Family Health Center. They offer a lot of different services, but I'll hone in on the behavioral health and the arts and therapy counseling aspect. Just another unique way, especially the arts and therapy part, is another way to learn how to express your feelings through art, through arts and crafts, painting, music, that they offer those specific focuses. So that's sort of the caveat of this particular program. This program is also sliding scale, so that's based off of the household income that the family or the client makes. And currently there are telehealth and in-person appointments according to their website. And then they also have Spanish speaking therapists available. And then lastly, we have Impact Behavioral Health Partner that's also located in Evanston. Now they also have these different programs that they provide focused on like fitness and physical health, but I'm honing in on the clinical services program. That is also housed by master level clinicians. And those clinicians offer individual counseling, and there's also some social workers on site that offer case management services as well. And then another unique part about this organization is they offer medication management. So there must be a psychiatrist on site to provide that extra special service. And then lastly, they're also sliding scale. Okay, so again, before I was able to fix my slide, I wanted you to meet me in the chat and just share a little bit about why you think it would be important seeking mental health resources. But I will just share that I think in a day and age like this, after going through or still living in, coming out of a pandemic, that taking care of you is super important. Taking care of your mind and your body, and making sure that that's a priority is extremely, extremely essential in order for you to be the person that you're called to be and the person that you are, that the way that you want to show up, right? And then in that same breath, you're also modeling that for the people around you, right? So whether you have kids and you're a parent or you're a teacher or you're whatever setting you're working in, you get to demonstrate the importance of self-care when you take care of yourself. So taking necessary breaks, asking for help, taking vacations, whatever you can do, whatever works for you, that you prioritize that for yourself so that you can see the better you in today. So here are just some links, and I'll have my PowerPoint shared with Jill or however that works so that you can kind of just click on these links and go through to see what resources are the best fit for you. So thank you so much for listening to my portion. If you have any questions, here is my email address, dwinley@familyinstitute.org. And I hope you all have a great night and enjoy the rest of the presenters.
All right, thank you so much. And we'll move now to Romy.
you. Hi, everyone. Hold on, I'm going to share my screen now also. All right. Hello, everybody. I am Romy DeCristofaro. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services in District 65. I will be sharing a little bit tonight about the resources and supports that are available to students and families from a school-based perspective. I am mostly going to be speaking about District 65, but I was able to connect with Dr. Lewis and Taya Kinsey at ETHS. So I do have some information to share about that as well, but much of what I cover is relevant for children in schools pre-K through 12. By the end of this presentation, I hope that you have a good understanding of what is available and then where you can access resources in school. So first, I just want to share a little bit about some of the priorities and reasons why mental health is so important from a school-based perspective. And, one reason is that schools are often the first place where students are identified as having some mental health supportive needs. So our focus as it relates to mental health is on prevention, intervention, and building healthy and positive relationships with students. As Dara mentioned, there is definitely, I think, more openness to accessing mental health, and that's wonderful. There still is a need to, I think, continue to educate and destigmatize it. So that's something that we try to do as in our schools. We try to work really hard to partner with families. We know that families are our students' most important teachers and spend, the most time with the children. So having that relationship and ongoing communication is really important for supporting students' mental health. And then we have school-based mental health professionals who are trained to provide services to students and help make connections with families to outside resources. So I just have this quote from a recent article that I read, just again highlighting the importance of school in contributing to positive mental health for students. All right. So I have this just little graphic on the side again, and if you're here and you're at an event called Mental Health is Essential, you know how important mental health is to students, to yourself, to everyone really. So just want to highlight some of the research which kind of echoes, and it might be a little bit redundant with what Dara shared, but this is specific to students. Just that indicates that between 18 to 20% of students do have some mental health issues that can be significant enough to cause an impairment that would impact major life functions. But within that group, those 18 to 20%, only 1 in 5 of these students potentially receive those necessary services. We also know that students with disabilities, students of color, and students from low-income families are at a greater risk for not receiving the appropriate services. So again, it's just really important that we are trying to be proactive and reach our families and our students to make sure that students are getting the services that they need. And then we know that students with untreated mental health issues can go on to develop more significant problems that would then impact their educational experience, future, and then potentially health. So this is the CastleSEL Framework, which we use in our schools and reference when we're thinking about the types of services and just educational opportunities that we're embedding into our classroom experience. These are focusing on the core competencies, and CASTLE stands for, I have to look it up, Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And these core competencies, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making are also aligned with the social emotional learning standards that we use in Illinois. So I just want to highlight this because as I move on to talk about some of the resources and materials that we use in our classrooms, just want to let you all know that some of the universal tools and supports that we provide all students are in alignment with developing these core competencies and social emotional learning skills. And then as we think about how we approach mental health in our schools, we strive to have a comprehensive system of supports. And I'm going to go over these 4 areas in a little bit more detail. But up in the top left, restorative practices and responsive classrooms. This is, what we provide. We try to provide for all classrooms and in our school community, just a place that is focused on building community, developing relationships, having healthy and productive conflict resolution strategies. And then moving over to, or we'll go down, how we screen and try to understand and get a pulse on what students might need some additional support. And then if there is a student that we're concerned about, our social workers and psychologists can conduct risk assessments to make sure that we are getting a sense of students who, again, might be at risk and need some more support and services. Up on the top right, we do have what we call, if you've maybe heard the term MTSS, that's a multi-tiered system of supports. We have it for academics, but also in thinking about how we're supporting students with their social emotional needs. In the classroom level, as I mentioned, we have a number of things, and I'll talk about responsive classrooms a little bit more in a bit. But we also have a number of trained professionals, guidance counselors, psychologists, and social workers. And I will share that we have we're adding some staff in next school year in District 65 to better support the mental health needs and social emotional learning needs of all of our students. So we are adding 8 guidance counselor positions. We do currently have 15 psychologists and 35 social workers district-wide. So we're very fortunate, and District 65 has, I think, a history of emphasizing and promoting and really prioritizing the mental health of our students. I have this arrow here because some students in the previous slide or 2 slides ago, when we're talking about mental health needs that can impact a major life activity and really impacting the educational learning of a student, they might be eligible for a 504 plan and receive accommodations and social work services, or through an individualized education plan. So again, I'll talk to you about how you can access resources if you feel like your child might need more than what they're currently getting. That could be an avenue for some increased support, but I want to be really clear that you do not need a 504 plan or an IEP to access social worker or these supports in our schools. And then finally, our social workers act as community liaisons and can help support and partner with outside resources to connect families with just different resources that they might need. And I'm also excited to share that we are adding 2 new, we already have them hired, mental health practitioner positions. And their sole purpose in our district is to provide that wraparound support and services for our families. So there'll be a referral process where school teams can connect with these mental health practitioners, and they would then work with the families to kind of help connect them. So we're really excited about that. All right, so I want to just share a little bit about the school social workers role, because they usually are our first line of support when there's a student or a family that needs some extra social, emotional, or mental health support. These are just some examples. Our school social workers, if any of you have worked with them, really go above and beyond and do so much more than I have listed here on this slide. But they do provide services to students. And again, this can be just a referral. As a parent, you could reach out to the teacher and say, I think my child, has this concern. I'd like them to see a social worker. It's that simple. They do provide counseling. It could be group or individual, depending on the needs of the students and I guess other kids and if they're good fits. And some of the things that they might be working on are coping skills, relationships and friendships, grief and loss, and then other school-related concerns. We see students who have been bullied or experience some sort of performance anxiety or school avoidance. So these are all things that a social worker might be working on with a student or a group of students. And many of these skills are transferable to things that a student or child might be experiencing outside of the school setting as well. They do provide crisis intervention support in the moment. They support conflict resolution. They can provide, they are part of the evaluation team when we're conducting a special education evaluation. They are important team members when we are developing positive behavior intervention plans for students and so much more. For families, as I mentioned, they do are great resources for connecting the school with outside community resources. And then something that has been around, we'll have a new name this year, new and improved. We're calling them family collaboration meetings. And this has been an evolution from the work that District 65 has done around our discipline and restorative process. So we had moved away from some punitive suspensions, and we started an alternative to suspension program that included a collaboration and counseling meeting with families. And we've learned and we've evolved it again. And next year we'll be having what we're calling family collaboration meetings that social workers will be a part of. If there is something at school that might be against what we would have as our behavior code of conduct, we want to be able to partner with families to support the student and teach them the skills that they would need to move forward. And we again know families are essential, so that's something else that our social workers will be a part of going into next year. And then oops, that should say services to teachers in the bottom, or staff, not families twice. So sorry about that. But they also are great resources and can provide training and mental health supports to our educators and staff too, and in services. And then again, going into the classroom and supporting teachers and developing any kind of classroom management or positive behavior plan. And they also do support our circles and our morning meetings and those types of things. We do everything that we can to make our social workers and our counselors feel part of the classroom community and school-based culture. All right, so some things, and I spoke to some of this already, that we do in District 65 that we'll be continuing. And again, our goal is to be proactive in our strategies, provide, or, kind of use our screening process and what we know about students to provide early intervention and hopefully have fewer reactive crisis management situations. So we do have a class that we call SEAL, and that stands for Social, Emotional, and Equity Learning, and that is in our elementary buildings at grades K, 1, and 4. Those are some intentional classes for students, and they really get to focus on learning some of these strategies and skills that we talked about. And then we are continuing and strengthening our restorative practices in our buildings, again, trying to be proactive, build strong communities, have responsive and proactive circles. And then we have more so this year than ever before, and this will continue to incorporate mindfulness activities in our schools, and then have daily social emotional learning check-ins. And then our one of our directors, Donna Cross, helped pull together a social emotional toolkit that educators can use and embed throughout their day to support social emotional competencies and make sure that they're explicitly taught, modeled, and practiced throughout the day, and not just when they go to their CO class or something like that. And then we also know that we need to make sure, as much as possible, we're also thinking about our educators and making sure that that they're taking care of themselves. So we did offer some wellness events and mindfulness and self-care activities, and those were well attended and well received, and we want to make sure we're continuing to do that. And then new for next year, and I already spoke to this a little bit, we're hiring we already hired the 2 mental health practitioners who will serve as school and community liaisons for coordinating resources and support for students and families. We have our guidance counselors. There will be 2 in each of our 3 middle schools and 1 in each of our magnet schools. And they, again, have a lot of responsibilities, but 2 things that we'll be focused on are supporting some social emotional learning groups. When we think about that tiered system of support, where a social worker might be providing some more intensive, targeted approach, the counselors will be more of like a tier 2 social emotional group, depending on the next part, which is the screening tool that we'll be setting out. And what's nice about this, and I actually use this in my old district, it's called the DESA. It's a universal screening tool that teachers will fill out as they get to know their students. And it is aligned with the CastleSEL standards and those 8 different areas that I've got here at the bottom: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, goal-directed behavior, personal responsibility, decision-making, and optimistic thinking are all things that a student will kind of be screened on. The teacher completes it, not the student. But what's nice about it is it prints out profile reports. So there's individual student reports, but then it also will give you like a group report. So a teacher might be able to get a report that says, wow, 60% of your class needs to work on self-awareness and optimistic thinking. And then you as a teacher know, like, wow, as I'm thinking about my proactive sharing circles in the morning, like these are the skills that we're going to focus on. So it's really nice for that. And then at the middle school level, that might be something that the guidance counselors could take a group of students based off this assessment, all knowing that these students might need to be working on the same skill and they could be grouped together. So we are excited about that. And then we are also, we had some schools that incorporated an approach called responsive classrooms this year. And then we had more go to trainings this summer, and we'll be incorporating that into more of our schools next year. And I'm going to share a little bit more about that. So it is a student-centered social emotional learning approach. It's not like a curriculum, but it does consist of different evidence-based practices. And the goal is to create safe, joyful, engaging classroom experiences and communities. And it supports our district priorities of promoting restorative practices, culturally responsive pedagogy, and it's aligned with our MTSS processes. So the social emotional competencies and academic competencies that are embedded into the practices and will be part of a classroom or school-based experience are also there provided below. Okay, so that was kind of for District 65, and I wanted to highlight some information that Dr. Lewis and Ty Kinsey shared with me about ETHS. So it was important. They wanted us to share that ETHS has a collective desire to build social emotional learning skills from a school-wide perspective. Similar to what I shared, they are working to embed it into all aspects of their school community. Similarly, they have also are focusing on mindfulness and as part of all of their classrooms. They are changing to block scheduling, which would mean fewer classrooms and transitions during the day to hopefully kind of slow down the pace and provide those opportunities for, again, building relationships, practicing those mindfulness activities. They have mental health teams that support students who may need additional help. And they also have a PHP and an IOP coordinator. So that's a partial hospitalization program and an intensive. What does the O stand for? Let me see if I have that written down. But the IOP is a more intensive program. And sometimes we have students that need to go to these kind of programs maybe for a few weeks, and then they work on transitioning back, and they have a coordinator who specializes and supports those students and families, and then the school teams in making sure that the student has a good experience transitioning back to school and has the support that they need. And then similar to District 65, they have grade level social workers and counselors. And then this is something Taya Kinsey shared with us this morning. They implement something called ACT Caretel, and this is also available, this information on their website, and just as part of their school's commitment to well-being, they've adopted this ACT, Acknowledge Caretel, and the goal here is to learn about the warning signs, acknowledge them, and then tell somebody, a trusted adult. And if there's not somebody that if they don't want to tell anyone, or if they want to be anonymous, there's a line or something that they can complete this incident form. So just want to make sure that everybody knows this is there. There's more information, and I do have Taya's contact information later in the slide if you have more question about this. All right. So I just put this quote here. I want to thank the Duchess, but I just think it's important, and again speaks to our need as a society, as a community, to really understand, destigmatize, and take mental health seriously. A child's mental health is just as important as their physical health and deserves the same quality of support. No one would feel embarrassed about seeking help for a child if they broke their arm, and we really should be equally ready to support a child coping with emotional difficulties. And I believe that strongly. And again, I just put this next slide in here. If you do need help, please don't hesitate to ask. I know I can speak for all the school professionals that I know, is that we are here. We want to be able to support you and help you. So in District 65, really your first line of support, if you feel like your child is struggling, or you just have questions or concerns, you can reach out to your grade level or homeroom teacher as a first step. You also, your building principal or assistant principal also could help connect you with the social worker if you need. And then of course, everybody, the principals are in, but there are a lot of people on summer vacation right now. So if you're not able to get in touch with somebody, you can certainly contact me, and my contact information is there, and I can help connect you or provide the information that you need so you can be set up now or when school begins. And then at District 202, similarly, if you have concerns and you're looking for more support, you can reach out to the grade level social worker as a first step. If it's, again, during the summer, then there's Taya Kinsey's, she's the Associate Principal of Student Services, and there's her email address. And I will also share this with Jill if anybody needs to access this later. And then here are just a couple resources from District 65, a little bit more about restorative practices. Our social workers had developed a COVID-19 resource guide. If this isn't just for COVID, there are a lot of great resources on there that you can access. And then on the ETHS site, there are some resources here on the social work webpage, and again, another resource about navigating the emotional landscape during COVID. And then I just wanted to end with a little bit of hope. I'm tried to be an optimist and find the meaning and learning in each experience, even the hard ones. And I tell my own kids, you know what, this is hard, but we can do hard things, and we're here for you. So just thinking about, understanding that our students are on a journey. We're all on a journey. Sometimes there are storms, and then we're all learning how to sail the ship the best we can. And just from a positive perspective, I like this quote from Dr. Ryan Padres. There's a lot of concern about children's social and emotional health during the pandemic, but the hard circumstances of the last year might actually foster a resilient generation of kids. So I just kind of want to end on that note. Um, I'll stop sharing my screen. And I will be
All right.
available at the end if there are questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. On to Erica to bring us home.
Yes, hello. I'm just going to share a couple minutes about the immediate crisis line, and then I'll have a flyer that I'll also share at the end. But I'm Erica Green. I'm a ER crisis worker and crisis response coordinator for Amita Health. Currently, I'm based at St. Francis, but I've worked in other ERs as well as the Red Cross. And so together, I have responded to different situations like floods, earthquakes, mass shootings, 2 hurricanes, cholera, and now COVID with the Amita crisis hotline. So I'm going to share more about the hotline right now. So one thing that we've learned some about from the pandemic is that we're learning when we're feeling not okay. And so what we do know is that okay can be defined broadly. And what is tough though is that sometimes we're not always sure what okay is because there's a continuum or a spectrum. And so some would say that World War II was the last time that we as a collective in this country have undergone a single ongoing health and economic crisis at the same time. However, one thing with the COVID pandemic has taught us is that crisis severity can range from country to country, state to state, home to home, or even from person to person. And so, for example, our neighbor might be struggling, but we might be doing okay. So it could be hard to identify or at least put in words what our internal experience is. And so I've heard many say that they perhaps want to talk to family, they want to talk to friends, but they don't want to put that kind of burden on them. And so one aspect that's helpful about the immediate crisis line is that they're open 24/7, 365 days a year. And although it's called a crisis line, you don't have to be in crisis necessarily to call. So if you need assistance in, like, for example, to process a situation you're not sure of, and there's nowhere else that you can turn, you can call the crisis hotline and their liners can assist. We have all ages call, and as far as the types of situations discussed, there's a gamut, so all kinds. And also there are times that, we'll take calls from teens who feel bullied, kind of like what Romy talked about. Also, it might be struggling with the passing of a loved one, or perhaps someone who's trying to make sense of their own life and their value moving forward. So, so the crisis line handles all kinds of subject matter. They also have partnered with other agencies as well. For example, someone needs help with this line, and they can help with that. If they need assistance with substance abuse resources. Also, the crisis line has police crisis workers to assist local law enforcement if there's a community member who is struggling with a mental illness. The police crisis workers, they will assist in that. The crisis line could also do well-being checks. So if there's someone who they didn't seem okay last night, but they want a professional to call and check in, that's something that the crisis hotline can do. They also sometimes work as a after-hours answering service for different agencies after they've closed. And also during the pandemic, they've offered a lot of support for those while they were quarantined. So they offer all kinds of referrals and resources, and it's also a free service too. So they give emotional support, crisis intervention, as well as links to different community resources. So the phone number, in case you all are wondering what that is, it's area code 708-681-4357. And so there's a flyer too, which I will share in a little bit. But yes, there are caring staff there. You can call any time of day, and they are there to help out. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.